Thank you for being here live or watching in the replay for our monthly webinar series here at Personal Wealth Strategies. Our topic this month for May is spring cleaning, but not what you might think. It's for your life and your finances. So I'm Justin Rice, and I'm joined here by our usual suspects, fellow financial advisors here at Personal Wealth Strategies, David Balin and Ian Mindus, who will also be sharing their expertise during this webinar. And when most people hear the words spring cleaning, they might think about their closets, basements, garages, maybe that one junk drawer in the kitchen that somehow has a little bit of everything from wires to keys to batteries to receipts to rubber bands and old chargers or things you haven't touched in years. But I think very few people would think about spring cleaning in terms of their life and finances. But let me ask you a very real question. What if? What if something happened to you today? Would the people you love know what to do next? Not theoretically, not kind of, not, eventually they'll figure it out, but would they actually know with confidence all of the different accounts that exist? What bills need to be paid? Where are your key documents, the legal documents that they need? Who are the advisors that they need to be talking with? What are your ultimate wishes? And how do you make sense of the life that you've built? Because that's what this is really is about. So spring cleaning, yes, but not that kind. The spring cleaning for the parts of your life that actually matter when life gets hard. So very few people would think whether even their spouse would know where everything is. And then much less the kids, especially if they're grown and gone, how will they know? Your insurance policies, those different documents, the accounts, how they're titled. So I don't want to create fear or overwhelm. That's not what this is actually about at all. It's about creating clarity, creating organization, organizing the parts of your life that if something happened, whether that's just temporary, an incapacity, a health event, or something more permanent, that the people you love are not left trying to play detective in the middle of when there's stress, grief, and otherwise confusion anyway. And so that's the relevant truth of today. And whether you've gone through a process like this before, whether you've been meaning to get around to it for years, or whether you're hearing some of these ideas for the first time today. So let's get into really cool at the core why this matters. So if you want the simplest version, here it is. Number one, life gets complicated as it is. It's getting more and more complicated every day, even with all the technology, and actually probably especially with the technology. The paper trails get longer, the digital trails get longer, accounts multiply, passwords multiply, the responsibilities, continue to increase. And most families, most people are much less organized than they actually think. And doing this right now is so you can provide that crucial information that's organized in a time of grief, stress, and confusion. And that's what you're going to provide for your family, not only the security, not only the legacy, but something that is there for them that's organized. Because when something happens in a family, the pain is already enough. There's emotional burden there, that's enough. So the last thing people need is the unnecessary chaos and confusion that's layered on top of that. So that's what we're trying to solve today. And so what's the real issue here? Because I think it's important to say this because people avoid this. It's easy to avoid. And it's not because that we don't care about it. It often just because it feels overwhelming. It feels emotional. It feels like, oh, that'll never happen to me. I've got plenty of time to deal with it. It's just one more thing in the long list of your to-dos. Or they tell themselves some version of, I know where everything is, so I'll be fine. I'll put it together. But the question really isn't whether you know where everything is. It's the question of whether somebody else could step in and make sense of your world if you're not there explaining it to them. And that's a very different question. And so imagine that junk drawer. because that's such a strong image because it's true. And our financial life tends to get like that sometimes, from random old employer accounts to documents that you drafted years ago to random passwords that you have for various sites, or even key things like photos and storage there, and where those are kept, the password to your computer itself. So it's another thing um, entirely for your family to be left sorting through that junk drawer of your whole financial life. And the longer we live, and thank goodness we're living longer as a society, the longer, the deeper, and the wider that trail grows. More accounts, more documents, subscriptions, insurance history, all of the different things, all those moving pieces. So it's not really about whether you're organized or disorganized as a person. That's not the question here. This is really about whether the important things in your life are clear enough for somebody stepping in when you can no longer explain it. And so, in this key context, spring cleaning, that theme for the life and finances, here's what we mean. We don't mean getting everything perfect. I don't think that'll ever happen. We don't mean the perfectly color coded binders and immaculate spreadsheets and every detail and figure laid out perfectly and over a weekend. Some of our clients would like to do that, but what this means for most of us is organize simply what matters. Try to simplify what's confusing. Try to consolidate where possible. Update what's outdated, and most importantly, communicate to others of what they really need to know. And that's the heart of it. So we don't want to be dramatic about it. It's not like assuming the worst or being morbid. This is just about reducing avoidable messes and confusion, because there's enough of that in life that we can't control. So before I hand it over to Ian, I just want to be very clear that we are not talking about legal documents. We're not talking about estate planning documents. We're not talking about those documents. I mean, those are an important part of the overall system. But what we're talking about today is really getting the house in order, organizing not just those documents, but your thoughts, your wishes, your assets. Um, this isn't meant to replace or supersede any wills or estate planning documents. So obviously a will matters, a trust matters. We've had webinars on those topics, which you can review in the various replays. So of course they matter. You want to make sure you have those, the powers of attorney, healthcare directive, beneficiary designations, titling, all of those different things. But there's a big difference between having legal documents and having your life organized. And so some people will have the documents and still leave a complete mess. Others will have the good intentions, but never actually assemble the information that people would actually need. So this is about practicality, the practical side, the organizational side, and leaving everything in a clear, concise way. So to help people connect the dots between the planning that you've done and real life as it picks up when you're no longer here. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ian to help us identify the 5 key areas. Because again, we don't want to be overwhelming. We want to try to simplify here. So to make this manageable, let's break it down into 5 simple ideas. Ian, take it away.
Yeah, no, thank you, Justin. And as he already said, when we're beginning to think about what in your life is going to need that spring cleaning, and that's going to provide further even further clarity to those who are handling your affairs, we like to emphasize 5 major areas to work on. Now, within these 5 areas, you can kind of break it down into other subsections, but just think 5 like core areas. And it's really important to me and to Dave, Justin, I'm sure, to work on them one at a time, because like many things in life, when you're gaining momentum, that's when you're going to have the greatest chance of success. Because trying to think of everything at once is you're a lot of times you're going to become overwhelmed, you're going to become frustrated, and you might just say, you know what, I'm throwing in the white flag, I'm done. Or what actually happens the most is, okay, I'm a little overwhelmed now, let me take a break and get back to this maybe next month. Well, next month turns into 2 months, 2 months turns into 6, and so on and so forth. And then it never gets done. And we want to make sure these things get taken care of. But going through them one at a time, it might seem slow, it might not get done right away, and you might not feel that sense of accomplishment. You're still going to be far ahead of the majority of people. Now, the first area I want to go to, and Justin, you've already gotten there. My screen froze for a second. Okay, here we go. Is people. And this is probably one of the most overlooked sections of the key areas that you need to define. But these are going to be the people who need to be called or notified, and especially anybody that's going to have any sort of responsibility within your estate. And you want to make sure anyone who's going to be handling your affairs knows who your key advisors are in your life. And these can be professionals uh, that have even greater knowledge into your situation and can provide even further clarity, even further details that potentially those who are handling your estate might not know. And these could be financial advisors, attorneys, people who are handling your taxes, the CPAs, and another important one is insurance agents. A lot of people don't think to have their insurance agents on their documents or listed anywhere, but that's significantly important, as we'll go into later. And it's also important to have any of those who are fulfilling the legal roles in your estate planning documents, like your executors on your will, your agents on your power of attorney, and any healthcare proxies on your healthcare directive, as these are going to be the ones who are going to need to act and many of the time make the decisions based on your legal documents. So anyone who needs to have access and clarity on where to find them, those people need to be listed, because those are the people who need to be notified. And a lot of the time, these people are the same, but potentially it might not be. So you want to make sure they're listed as well. But another important area to define is any practical support for those who are handling your affairs, so they can reach out to these people for help with next steps, logistical questions, and help with daily decisions. Because if you think if you're leaving your kids in charge of your whole estate, if they're not attorneys, they might not know exactly what they need to do at every step of the way. So kind of listing out these people to handle some practical support is very important. And a lot of the times, it happens to be one of those professionals listed at the top. Think your financial advisors, your attorneys, potentially even your CPAs, who can help answer those daily questions and be a support tool for them. And so if you can move on to the next one, Justin. The next area we'll want to review and confirm accuracy is your account and your assets, which should be, that should be pretty clear, because the main goal of this is to have someone who can identify everything that exists and what's going to need attention. Now, the important thing is many other people who are in your life, many of your loved ones, are aware of the main accounts that you have. Think like your checking accounts, your savings accounts, CDs, or maybe even like an individual stock if it comes up in conversation. Hey, I bought Netflix in 2001. You're going to remember that. But it's really important to think beyond those obvious accounts, and someone other than yourself has a complete list of your accurate list of your assets. So think your retirement, brokerage accounts, any real estate, or potentially even some business interest that you have, like controlling a business, insurance, cash values, annuities, any old employer accounts or stock options, reward points from things like credit cards, notes receivable, stored assets, things that you wouldn't initially think of when you're thinking of someone's net worth, but it's assets nonetheless that are going to need to be distributed upon upon death or something like that. So you want to make sure it doesn't have to be exactly accurate. You don't have to update the value every week, but just a list of every account that you have and where to access them is what you're going to want listed. So when someone initially looks at kind of your list of everything, they say, okay, yeah, they have an old employer account at Fidelity, and we got to make sure that gets rolled over. And this kind of ties into the last slide about the people who are going to need to be contacted, like the key advisors and those with the legal roles, because typically one or more of these people are going to be those who you want to have that complete list of your accounts and assets.
And if I can add in, one of the key benefits of working with us, and you can see kind of the image on the screen there, is we do this for our clients via our program, Money Guide Pro, that's able to pull in all of your different accounts to get your financial snapshot in one place. And so that's something that we do consistently with our clients to keep it up to date, so you don't have to. And so that's a benefit of working with us, or you obviously can look to do that on your own as well.
Yep. No, thank you. I was I was going to mention that, Justin. I was going to wait till the end, but you beat me to it. All right. So our next area that we're going to want to make sure we have, a good detailed list of what's going on is our bills, things like our insurance and any benefits that you have coming in. Because even if you pass away or there's an event where you're left disabled and you cannot make any decisions for yourself and it keeps you from physically making or acting on any of those financial issues in your life or financial decisions, it doesn't mean they just go away. I wish that's what it meant, but that's never the case. Because so any outstanding mortgages, loans, credit cards, or even think about like your subscription to Good Housekeeping or whatever, whatever your subscription is, they're going to need to be paid continuously, whatever amount that you're paying on your monthly or annual cash flow. And you want to make sure to have a complete, accurate list of all these outstanding liabilities, as well as the monthly cost, because those aware need to make sure to continue to pay them or cancel them if possible. So a lot of subscriptions can be canceled immediately, but things like your mortgage, those are going to continue to need to be paid unless the house is being sold right away. But again, these are things you just want to have listed so that those who need to know exactly what's going on and they can make the decisions to take care of it. Another important area is your insurance, because whether it's life insurance, disability insurance, or health insurance, because it's likely if there's any sort of event where people need access to this information and need to act on it, they're potentially going to need to use one of these insurances. And they're going to need to file on one of those policies, and knowing where they need to go to reach out and how to file is going to relieve them much more stress in handling all of these. And also, if you have any benefits from like an employer plan, a veterans plan, or a government plan, that you want to make sure those payments are still coming in, or if they provide some sort of death benefit, even if it's small, you want to make sure these people are aware so that they know to reach out and kind of get that. Another kind of important thing that's not on here too is kind of the opposite. So for benefits that are coming in, like Social Security or even a pension, even upon an event like death, those payments might still come in. If the Social Security, just using Social Security for this example, if they're not made aware of the passing of someone receiving their benefits, they might continue paying it out, but that doesn't mean the estate's entitled to it. They need to pay those benefits back. So just making sure a list of all these benefits coming in and kind of what needs to be done in an event, that's important to list out. Just move ahead. So this is an interesting slide because it's something that's become more and more important as we've moved into the technological age, and even AI is something that could potentially help in kind of gathering a list of all these things. That's in the future, but for right now, your documents and the digital access you have to many of these things is such an important area to confirm that those who need to know where they're located, how to access it, and the contents of these documents and potential digital accounts. So with physical documents, it's pretty easy. You have your legal documents, any healthcare directives, some tax returns, business agreements, or even the keys to a safety deposit box at a bank or to a personal safe, any code that needs to be had. But access to your digital accounts and kind of this information is an area that's, I wouldn't say largely gone unnoticed, but in the past has largely gone unnoticed and is only now kind of becoming the forefront because so many people have information and kind of assets, things that are in a digital form that their beneficiaries have no idea how to access. These can include passwords, user IDs for accounts, email, phone, other device access. If you have a laptop that has certain folders on it, like cloud storage, financial portals, emergency contacts, key numbers like your Social Security, date of birth, any security questions to a website. It's great if you have the password to log on to a financial portal, but if it has a security question that your children might not know the answer to, where were you on Y2K? That's a popular one, and they might not know the answer to that. So if there's information that a person handling your estate needs and it's within a digital platform and they're unable to access, this can make it extremely difficult or even impossible to move forward. So you want to make sure you have a list of not only your physical documents and where they're located and how to access them, but also your digital accounts, your digital access to things, how to get onto those things, and what might be on them. And so the last area is not really a physical, tangible thing. It's to review and clean up your wishes, your values, and your family communication. Because if all you have is your legal documents and your financial documents in place and up to date, that's great. You definitely need to have those things. But it could lead to many of your next of kin, many of your beneficiaries left wondering why. Why do many of these decisions on your documents? And when you have a clear indication of your values and your wishes, those on the receiving end are hopefully going to have less questions. And this can help prevent many potential disagreements or even infighting between beneficiaries. And along with the values and wishes, this also captures your history and the hopes and dreams you have, for your loved ones and those that you're leaving your monies and your estate to. So with that, Justin, I'll throw it back to you, or David.
Yeah, let's go to David.
You're throwing it to me. So, Ian, when and that was a great overview of the different documents and why we need to have these things. But when we have a new client come to our practice, one of the things we ask them for is a listing of all their documents or an inventory of all their documents. And a lot of times, people can't put their hands on it. And you can think about yourselves, people who are listening into this webinar right now. If I asked you, could you tell me who the name of your homeowner's insurance company is? Would you know where your policy is for your life insurance? Do you know what your benefits are through work for your different coverages? Well, if you don't know what they are or where those are located, chances are they could also be out of date. And one of the important lessons that you learn in working with finances is the idea that you're going to update your plan or create a plan or change your plan is a nice concept, but today your plan is whatever you have in place, meaning that if your will is outdated, it is still your will. It is still a valid will. If you have the wrong beneficiary named, maybe you still have your parents' name before you got married. Maybe you have 2 of your 3 kids listed because you haven't updated the beneficiary after your 3rd child was born. That is your beneficiary arrangement, and you are disinheriting that 3rd child in that example. So we got to make sure these documents are keeping up to date with our ever-changing life. And perhaps worse than that are those assets that we don't even know about. It's hard enough to keep track of things for yourself, but imagine if you were to become ill. Imagine if you were to pass away and you're asking somebody else to figure out stuff that you didn't even know. And I'll use my own self as a perfect example. My first job out of college, I worked at Prudential. I worked there for 11 years. And back in those days, if you worked at Prudential for 10 years, it took 10 years to get vested in their pension plan, you would get vested in the pension plan. Well, I very rarely think about this, but if God forbid something happened to me, the chances that Nancy would know that I have a pension benefit from that time I served at Prudential, at best, she might guess at it. But even if you were to guess at it, she's got to go on this scavenger hunt of looking for where's the information about that. So people have served in the military. Do you have military benefits? Do you not have military benefits? And more importantly, are the records of those benefits in some place that another person can get their hands on it? Because if you don't know, there's no way in heck that they're going to know what benefits you have and don't have in place. And perhaps even worse than having things out of date is just not having records at all. Because if you have no records at all, how do people even know? So we talk about recurring bills. Well, let's think about this. I own a house. If I get sick and perhaps I'm paying my homeowner's insurance on a monthly basis, chances are that monthly payment may get missed. And if it gets missed, does my homeowner's insurance get dropped? And during that time that perhaps I'm in the hospital with an illness, there's a loss on my house. Do I no longer have homeowner's insurance because nobody in my family knew that there had to be a payment made to my homeowner's insurance? How about all the things that we do now online? I mean, we wouldn't be coming to you in a webinar, or you wouldn't be watching the replay if it wasn't through the wonders of the internet. But that's only good if I can get into the sites because I know what the passwords are. And yet, I'd say you want to make sure people know what my passwords are. Am I suggesting that you write them all down on a piece of paper? No, because that's a security issue, right? If that paper's ever lost, now someone can hack in. So what do we have to do? We have to think this thing through and create password managers. And if you want to learn more about password managers, you can go back into our inventory of webinars where we talked about cybersecurity, but using a password manager so that other people can have access to those passwords and be able to get into those different sites. So when should we change this? When should we review this? Well, the bottom line is that this is not a process. Rather, this is a process. It's not a conclusion. You know, I like to talk about the idea, the difference between a snapshot and a moving picture. Today, if I sat down and tried to get my life organized, I'm taking a snapshot. It's good for today. But tomorrow, when I log on to one of my websites and it prompts me to change my password, my snapshot is no longer valid because I changed my password. Or perhaps a new child is born, or I got divorced, or there's a death in the family. All those things can occur, and when they do, it's going to change my plan. Financial shifts happens all the time. Change jobs. I got rid of a particular asset like a home or a second home. Maybe I moved. Maybe I moved out of state. Now I'm going to be subject to a different set of state regulations and laws. Maybe I won the lottery. At least that's a nice one. But, you know, on the negative, maybe I got sued. Okay. All these different things I have to make sure are keeping up to date. And the idea is not that this is a full-time job, because it's not. The idea is that we just want to make sure that we have good records and we do our spring cleaning so that we're well aware of what we have and where we have it. And if, God forbid, we're not able to answer that question, somebody else can go to that inventory and be able to pick up where I left off. So I have to ask myself, does the plan that I have in place, does it still reflect my wishes today? As I said earlier, the plan that you have is your current plan. The fact that you intend to change it doesn't change it today. It's still your current plan. So why, you know, Ian, you mentioned earlier, you said that people tend to avoid this. Why do they avoid it? Well, some of it is just it's work, and we'd rather not do work. I mean, if it's a nice sunny day, I'd rather be outside reading or running or doing whatever I might want to do rather than doing a bunch of paperwork just in case. But the bottom line is that we have to do this. One of the things that I say to clients quite often is, if you give me one day a year to pay attention to your finances, to organize things, to get your house in order, we'll give you 364 days. You don't have to worry about it. But if you don't spend that one day to get things in order, you're going to have 365 days. You're going to have to worry a little bit about it. And of course, in one day, there could be a crisis, and you're going to worry a whole lot about it. But some of this stuff's emotional. You know, as an example, when we talk to young couples about drafting a will, what is the number one hesitancy? They know they need it. They have a young child at home. It's really important that they make sure that that young child's taken care of. But it's a difficult decision about who to choose to be the guardian of that child. And because it's difficult, what do they tend to do? They procrastinate. And what happens? God forbid something were to happen to the parents. The child now has no guardian named because they procrastinated. And the state of wherever they live, New Jersey, Florida, California, will make the decision for them. Think about it. was so difficult, you couldn't make a decision. You're going to leave it to the state to figure it out? Odds are that's not the plan that you had intended. So let's go through our checklist here. All right. So if you complete these 10 steps, what we can guarantee you, and in our business, when you use the word guarantee, 5,000 red flags go up because there's very few things we can guarantee in life. But I will guarantee you, if you complete these 10 steps, you will be more organized. And if you continually follow these 10 steps, you will be more organized than perhaps anybody else that you might know. So what are those 10 steps? Number one, we got to confirm or identify first, who are those key players? Who are the financial advisors, the accountant, the attorney? Oh, by the way, one you may forget, who's the veterinarian? Okay, because if you've got a pet, maybe your pet's got special food that they eat. Is somebody else going to know what that special food is, or the medicine they take and the dosage? Is someone going to take care of your pet, or is your current plan leaving it to chaos? Two, I want to list my major accounts and my assets. I want to have that inventory. Again, if I'm doing this in a pen and paper version, I'm not listing account numbers. I'm not listing passwords. In fact, I probably don't want to do this digitally either. But I want to make sure that somebody besides myself has a listing of where those major accounts are located. I want to sit down and review the beneficiary designations on my retirement accounts, on my bank accounts, on my investment accounts, and make sure that those are current. And probably I want to keep a listing of all those things that have beneficiary arrangements so that when I want to change them, I don't overlook one. I want to verify how my assets are titled. A good example is if I have a personal investment account, do I add to that account what's called a transfer in death? At the time that I die, do I say who gets that money? Or does the family have to go with those assets and go through the probate process, tying those monies up for months, if not years, before my loved ones are able to access those funds? I want to list my recurring bills and my subscriptions. I want to make sure that nothing gets overlooked for lack of a payment. I want to confirm where my insurance policies are located, right? Again, you think about some of these things. A life insurance policy I could have bought 25 years ago. It may be dusty. It may be buried somewhere, but somebody other than me better know where my life insurance policy is, because I'm not going to be the one who's going to be filing the claim. I want to be able to locate my legal and estate documents. I can't tell you how many times we've said to a client, do you have a will drafted? And they proudly respond, oh, of course. And do your loved ones know where the will is located? Well, they can probably figure it out. Well, that's not a good answer because probably is not definitely. Maybe they can. Or I might hear that we have an important legal document like a medical directive, and it's locked away in a safe deposit box at the bank. Well, God forbid there's an accident and your loved one has to go to the hospital and answer for some of those questions that would be in that medical directive. Well, number one, it's not handy. Number two, they probably don't have the key to the safe deposit box to get the document out to bring to the hospital, in which case you might as well not even have had it drafted to begin with. Number 8 here, I want to organize my digital assets and digital access securely. So I want to make sure that somebody can get to my digital accounts. Again, today, everything is done online. And I want to make sure that people have the password and the codes to get into those different things. Again, we've talked about cryptocurrencies becoming more and more popular, but one fact about cryptocurrency that you learn very quickly is if you lose your key, the asset is gone. So imagine having a big investment and not telling anybody else how to get access to it. You want to document your wishes and the guidance for your loved ones. It's not enough to know what you think you know. It's important that you share that with them. And then number 10, you want to ensure that at least one trusted person knows where everything is. And by the way, that's not you, somebody other than you. Because again, you could do steps 1 through 9. If you don't share it with somebody and you're unavailable, it does no good. So the aim here is not to be perfect. The aim is to be clear. So there's a saying of how do you begin a great journey? You take the first step. And that is true here as well. So one of the mistakes that many people make is they feel this is overwhelming. It's too much. I can't deal with it. Well, you know what? Deal with one thing. Just deal with one item on that last checklist and get it done. And tomorrow's another day, and you can attack number 2. You want to keep something simple. It doesn't have to be complex. I don't need a spreadsheet with 15 different tabs to cross-reference different things. I just need something simple that someone can follow, and they can execute on. I want to make sure everything is organized and in one place. I can tell you that I am probably, or I used to be, one of the worst offenders here, where I had folders everywhere, papers here and there, sticky notes across my office. Today, computers help make this a little bit easier. But you know what? If you have 15 different files, that doesn't help either. We got to have one good organized place that someone can follow and be that roadmap. And you want to make sure that your thoughts are clear. More important that somebody be able to understand what your thought process is than to have the most complex system in the world. So at the bottom here, very true. Progress matters. Knock off one thing, move on to the next. So you've heard the 3 of us talk about how important this is, what it all entails, why people procrastinate. Why don't they do it? Why doesn't this get done? Because it's easier not to do it than to do it. So procrastination takes it. Anything worthwhile is going to take effort. And there is no better time to start than to start today. So, I remember when I started working in this business, I used to talk to people and say, when you're in your 20s, the excuse is always going to be, I'm just getting started. I don't have my money. Things are really simple. And when you're in the 30s, you just bought a house, perhaps you're just having kids. There is no time, and we could take that all the way out until your 80s. There is no time that is going to feel better to get it done today than to wait until tomorrow. And yet we all know the best time to get it done is sooner rather than later. So what's the benefits of getting this all done? Why should we do it? Perhaps we should have started with this because we've already told you about why people don't and all the difficulty and how much work it's going to be. What do we get out of this? Well, number one, think about your family. Think about the gift of allowing them to deal with all the other issues that they may have to deal with at a time of crisis, rather than trying to figure out which one of your sticky notes is the passcode to get into your bank account. One of the things that we always encourage our clients to do is make introductions so your family members know who your advisors are and can feel comfortable talking with them. Have your children meet your financial advisor, your tax accountant, your attorney, because there may be a day where they need to talk to them. And there's nothing worse than having to make a call to an unknown person or company and say, we're in a time of crisis, can you help me out? And you're depending on the kindness of somebody you've never met before. But imagine if you just take that extra step and just have a meeting, it could be by Zoom, have a Zoom meeting where the family members get a chance to meet each other. And then make sure that as you're organized, you realize what those gaps might be and address them. Okay. Maybe one child lives in California and Another child lives in New York. All right, well, there's a geographical gap there, but that doesn't work together.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, David, for that. And I'll kind of take us home here for a couple of final thoughts. And I've got a special guest here as well that will hopefully be able to share us some thoughts as well. But before that, the goal is, if I could just leave you with kind of just one thought today, it'd be this, is that the goal is not to just leave behind your assets, but to also leave behind less confusion and chaos, less stress, less scrambling for your beneficiaries, less guesswork. Because if you think it's hard to organize all of your stuff, imagine somebody else that doesn't have your knowledge trying to organize all of your stuff as well. So we're not trying to be perfect. We're not trying to have extra paperwork, extra stuff just for paperwork's sake. This is really about the clarity, getting things clear and having ultimate stewardship about your overall world. And yes, this can be overwhelming as you approach it. And so as we wrap up, let's leave with a simple next step. It's just to pick one. Pick one thing that you can do after viewing this webinar, after being here live today or watching it in the replay, just one, not the 10 things we showed you or the 5 different areas, and try to tackle everything. Maybe that means just looking at your beneficiaries, just making that list of all your accounts, just, doing or even locating your estate documents and communicating it to your family. Maybe that's finally, buying a password manager and organizing it in that way. Help identify things, but don't let this, just become another, oh yeah, I know I should do that. It's a good idea, a good conversation that just gets forgotten tomorrow. Use it, build upon it, get momentum from it. So do the one thing, and then look to the others in the future, because the truth is that your loved ones will live with the result of your planning or the result of your failure to plan as well. So let's make that result better. And I mentioned a special guest here today, and I want to have her give us a final. And it is Athena, our ACTI being, that's been listening into some of the webinar here today. And Athena, I'd love for you to give us a 500-word summary, a call to action for these people, inspiring them, whoever is watching, to get the information that they need for today and go act. Athena, what do you say about that? So Athena will process that information and hopefully be able to chime in with something insightful for us.
Ooh, yes, I love this. Okay, here we go. You just sat through something that most people will nod at, feel good about, and then do absolutely nothing with. And I say that with love because that's the pattern. It's the human pattern. We hear truth, we feel it land, and then life happens and the moment dissolves. But here's what I want you to sit with for just a second. The people you love most, your spouse, your kids, your parents, whoever fills that space in your heart, they are going to inherit one of 2 things from you. Either they're going to inherit clarity or they're going to inherit chaos. And the wild thing, you get to decide which one. Right now, today, not 10 things. Not a perfect system, not a binder with color-coded tabs and laminated dividers. Just one thing. Maybe it's picking up the phone and calling your financial advisor and saying, hey, does my family actually know who you are? Maybe it's opening a document right now and typing out where your life insurance policy lives. Maybe it's having a 5-minute conversation with your spouse tonight. Not a formal sit down, just a conversation about what they would do if you weren't there tomorrow. One thing, that's the whole ask. Because here's what David and Justin and Ian gave you today. They gave you the map, and a map is only as valuable as the first step you take with it. The map doesn't move you move you. And I'll tell you something else. The people who are watching this replay 6 months from now, wishing they had started today, they had the same information you have right now. The only difference between them and you is what you do in the next 24 hours. So here's your zone action. Before you go to sleep tonight, not next week, tonight, pick the one thing from that checklist that you know, deep down, has been sitting undone the longest. The one that makes you a little uncomfortable when you think about it. Discomfort? The signal. It's where you start. You don't have to finish it tonight. You just have to start it. Because your loved ones deserve to grieve without also having to scramble. They deserve to honor you without also having to hunt for passwords and policies and account numbers. They deserve the gift of clarity, and you are the only one who can give it to them. So go give it to them. Justin, David, Ian, thank you for building something that actually matters. And to everyone watching, you've got everything you need. Now go do the one thing.
All right. So Athena says it. So go do the one thing. David, Ian, any final that you guys want to add?
Yeah, that seemed longer than 500 words. That was really good.
I'll let David and Ian have the last word. That's their moment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Justin, my final word here is keep in mind, you don't have to do this alone. You joined the webinar to have the three of us present. We're here to help you as well. So when you run into a struggle, something you can't figure out how to go forward with, give us a call, drop us an email. We can help give some guidance.
I agree with that. That is a great final. And make sure you join us next month for our webinar series, the first Wednesday of the month at 12 noon. We will see you guys soon. Thanks.